Hey, this is Jamey with Stonemeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk to you about a game that I played on vacation recently in Yosemite. I played the game Sonora. This is a flick and write game. So it's similar to roll and write games where one player or multiple players are rolling dice or selecting dice and then using that information to write down a number or something on their player mat. In this game, instead, you are flicking discs. And this I think is my favorite mechanism in the game because it's a really, really clever mechanism to add a flicking element to the game. And there are multiple reasons why I really like this. The first is that really one of the great things about roll and write games is that you don't have to have player interaction that can scale really well. But there is a subset of roll and write games that intentionally have player interaction. One famous one is Ganshan Clever. And I think Sonora might be even better at the player interaction aspect than Ganshan Clever, because you are flicking these discs. And I'm sorry, I left my copy in Yosemite because I couldn't travel back with it, so I can't show it to you here, but hopefully Joe will show an image. But you have this little tray, and you are flicking discs off the edge of it, not in real time, on your turn, onto 4 different areas of the board. And while you're doing that, this is the player interaction part, you might knock other discs out of the way. They might be your discs, they might be other players' discs. And so it is not a particularly mean game because all the stuff on the board is good. But there are moments in the game where you see a player is about to get a huge bonus and you might target that player's token so that they don't get that bonus. Or you might miss it completely. You don't know. It's a dexterity game, so you can't be sure that you are going to hit their token. That's one part of it. The player interaction, I think, is really, really cool, part of the flicking mechanism. The other part is how it's executed so that it is very difficult to fail. We played a 3-player game, and only twice over the course of the entire game, while flicking, I think we flicked a total of, I don't know, there was close to 60, 70 flicked discs during the game, and only 2 of them bounced off the board itself and gained nothing. Every other flick ended up somewhere on the board because it's well guarded. It's rather difficult to flick it off the board. And every space on the board, on this platform, this table, is a benefit. It's either a basic benefit, and that's divided into the quadrants, or there are circles within those quadrants that give you better bonuses for different areas of your player map. So this is, I really like this. So no matter what, unless you have a really bad flick, you are getting something good. You're either getting something good or you're getting something great from those bonus areas. I thought that was a really, really nice addition to have in the game. And specifically, the way those bonus areas are implemented on the board are also really nice because you have moments of either luck or skill where you really target one of those small circles on the board and get a big bonus that feels really good. And if you miss one of them, you still feel good because you're getting a bonus. You're moving forward in the game. So all these things come together, the player interaction, the platform itself for flicking, and the different areas of the board come together for a really nice result that results in the things that you get to put on your mat. And this is the final aspect of the flicking element, the flicking choice that I really like, which is that there are numbers on your discs. You have 5 different discs, numbered 1 to 5, and those numbers matter directly and specifically to the strength of the benefits you get. Generally, unless you're going for something very specific on the board, generally, and that does happen, there are spaces on the board, places and times on the board where you want a very specific benefit that requires a specific number. But generally, you want the higher number. And so it gives you a really interesting choice. When do you use that 5 disc based in your flicking order, and what do you target with it? Are you targeting one of those bonus spaces? Are you targeting just a general area of the board? And do you flick that first, knowing that other players might bump it around? You can also flick it first because you can then flick against your own disc. Like if you miss with that 5 disc, you might be able to later hit it into a better position. Or do you wait until late in the round, the flicking phase of the round, to flick that high numbered disc in the hopes that a few other players can interact with it during the round? This is a great twist to the game, that there are numbers on these discs giving you a really interesting choice when you're flicking. Not only where are you flicking, but which number disc are you using to flick at that particular time. Usually in these videos, I've been talking about like what shines and what problems does it solve. I feel like I've already discussed those today. Design component implications. I think the key here is that it is very specifically a four-player game because the corners of the board form kind of triangles that are raised up over the platform of the board, and it's from those little triangles on the corners of the board that you're flicking off of. And so it works well for a four-player game or less because you each have your own specific corner. Other component implications, I think the discs work well. They're little, they're round wooden tokens, and they're the right height for flicking. Yeah, I don't think another component would have worked well there. It did require, the platform itself requires a plastic molded a board, basically, to keep everything in place, but I think that works really well. And the last point that I try to talk about is how do I see this used elsewhere? Examples of other games, my games, hypothetical or offshoots. I don't know. It's kind of just opens up a world of specifically, I think, shorter games, because I think dexterity and flicking games, they're geared well towards shorter play times. So games that play in around 30, 45 minutes, maybe even less. Shorter games, whether or not they're roller write games, it's nice that you end up having this thing that you write down after you do the flicking, but it really could be anything. You don't need to necessarily write something down after doing this flicking mechanism. But I really like the different layers of this and how it could be applied to another game. The different numbers, the rewarding aspect of having no misses, and that there are certain bonuses at different places on the board. So I think this does apply already to other dexterity games, and I think it probably applies best to dexterity games, having these elements where you might get a little lucky at certain times, or you might be able to steer towards a certain area. Whereas if you were just placing a token on the board, I don't think it would be as interesting that way. So yeah, that is my favorite mechanism in Sonora, the flicking mechanism, and how it's designed and how it applies to various elements of the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts about your favorite element of Sonora or your favorite game that involves some sort of flicking or dexterity. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that in the comments below. Thanks.